What do you do when you find the 3-act structure too broad and the save the cat beat sheet too formulaic? If you're John Truby, you create your own structural paradigm with even more steps, but also more flexibility, and a shift in focus from what happens to why it happens. That change in mindset can be powerful, but it also means Truby's already lengthy 22-step structure requires even more context to reach its full potential. In fact, this section of the book doesn't even start until we're well beyond the 60% mark, and have already covered story premise, character, theme, world, and symbols. If by the end of this video you think the 22-step structure might be right for your story, you should really check out the full book. Link in the description. Now, Truby is pretty brilliant, but I'd argue he's not so good with titles. Despite being one of the only popular structures named after its number of steps, even Truby warns, don't get hung up on the number 22. A story may have more or fewer than 22 steps, depending on its type and length. He uses the metaphor of a story as an accordion. It is limited only in how much it can contract. It must have no fewer than 7 steps. Why 7? Well, according to Truby, the 7 steps are not arbitrarily imposed from without, the way a mechanical story structure such as 3-act structure is. He's really not a fan of the 3-act structure. The 7 steps exist in the story. They are the nucleus, the DNA of your story, and the foundation of your success as a storyteller because they are based on human action. They are the steps that any human being must work through to solve a life problem. So it's really the between 7 and 22 step outline. Except step isn't the most accurate word choice either, because it usually implies a series of actions taken in order. While Truby is clear that every good story works through the steps in a slightly different order, you must find the order that works best for your unique plot and characters. The order that is given is simply the most common order. And the first step, well, that starts near the end and isn't actually a step at all. To be completely honest, I think this quote-unquote step is poorly explained. It's presented as a framing device that's actually a combination of 3 of the 7 core steps. Truby provides 3 questions to help you create the framework, but the examples he provides at the end of this step don't actually answer all those questions, and for some reason provide seemingly extraneous information. But I'm still going to focus on the 3 questions because I think they're actually the most helpful bit for framing your plot. But if you read this section differently, I wouldn't blame you. The first question gives us our self-revelation. What will my hero learn at the end?
I didn't want to listen, but he was right. Nothing is more important than family.
Once we know the end, we can work backwards by asking, what does he know at the beginning? What are the relevant beliefs they bring into the story?
Sometimes I look at De La Cruz and I get this feeling, like we're connected somehow. Like if he could play music, maybe someday I could too. If it wasn't for my family.
And to move from where our character starts to what they learn, we have to ask, what are they wrong about in the beginning?
Come, you'll feel better after you eat with your family.
I don't want to be in this family!
Do these questions completely address our hero's self-revelation, needs, and desires in the story? No. But what they do is set us off with the right frame of reference for when we reach those steps. But first, it's time for a bit of setup. Because your story has to take place somewhere, the story world is one of the first decisions you'll need to make. And while some worlds, like Middle-earth, have more obvious effects on their stories,
one by one, the free lands of Middle-earth fell to the power of the ring.
even seemingly normal worlds like 1990s suburbia will still heavily influence things.
That's how things really are. You just don't know because you're this pampered little suburban chick.
And just like places come with baggage, your characters do too. They enter with a backstory often containing open wounds that hold them back, which Truby calls ghosts.
You're close to him, aren't you?
Yeah, I was. He died when I was 9 years old. I never got to know my mother.
Though some stories instead start with characters in a seemingly unblemished world.
I want to marry you.
He looks at her. They kiss suddenly. Until the ghost is created by an attack. He jerks out his dagger and slices Marion's throat. That shatters that reality. With the final amen, William kneels beside Marion's body wrapped in burial canvas. Either way, Truby points out that these ghosts are often the source of the hero's psychological and moral weakness. Concepts we'll discuss more in depth in the next step. Weakness and need is the first of our 7 core steps. Though I think weakness, need, and a problem is a more appropriate title since all 3 are important here and inform each other. Every story should have a hero with a psychological weakness, a character flaw that stunts or harms their life, like being a workaholic or dishonest.
Tell her I broke my leg and I had to be shot.
Why don't you tell her yourself?
Fletcher switches gears in an
And
instant.
then send out a notice of judgment on my win today.
I'll get right on it.
Fletcher turns and pretends to be surprised.
Miranda! Hey, I didn't see you!
But in great stories, this psychological weakness usually also has a moral component. It's not just causing harm to the hero, but also hurting others.
He said he was gonna be here, he promised.
I know, but he promises that he's gonna see you tomorrow. Okay?
Our hero then needs to overcome these weaknesses to improve their life and the world around them. Only they usually aren't aware of them yet or don't see them as a weakness. So instead, we highlight the weakness near the beginning of the story by giving the heroes a related problem, like a crumbling relationship with their kid.
I'm so glad my gift could bring those 2 together. My plan to phase myself out is almost complete.
A problem they won't be able to solve until their self-revelation. Remember, we're working backwards, and we're just getting started. The inciting incident, catalyst, trigger, call to adventure. Whatever you call it, by this point in the series, you probably know what this is. But here's Truby's definition. This is an event from the outside that causes the hero to come up with a goal and take action. This isn't the start of the goal or action itself, but the incident that leads the hero to them.
I got a long-distance call from Mr. Mooney, your father's lawyer. He's been trying to reach you. Your father has died, Charlie.
You might even say it ignites their desire. Desire is your hero's particular goal. It provides the spine for the entire plot, which is why it's the second of the core 7 steps. If you learn only one thing from this video, let it be that. You'd be amazed at how many scripts I read that are completely missing a desire. Where need was about overcoming internal weakness, desire is the external goal. It motivates the hero to take action. Ian looks longingly at Dad.
Whatever it takes, I am gonna meet my dad.
You hear that, Dad? We're going on a quest!
Desire fuels the actual events we see on screen. But as we've seen throughout this series, it's likely our hero will need a bit of help achieving their goals. No need to drag this one out. This stage is when the hero usually meets a few new characters that will help them along their way.
Well, this is obviously the elite year now.
This is Miriam.
Hi.
This is the girl.
Key, this is Theo.
Theo and Key lock eyes.
What are you staring at?
Apparently the pleasure's all mine.
Though Truby does expand a bit by suggesting you give allies their own desires to make them feel like more complete characters.
I'm looking for the Brittle brothers.
But not everyone is here to help our hero. In the third of the core 7 steps, we reveal the opponent or antagonist. The opponent isn't just a bad guy. It's a character or thing introduced to oppose your hero.
I can't let you in. I cannot let you interfere.
Though that doesn't mean they can't want the same thing.
You will not be emperor.
Which wiser older man is to take my place?
My powers will pass to Maximus.
In fact, Truby suggests all good opponents compete for the same goal as the hero, at least very broadly. As an example, Truby explains that in a detective story, it appears that the hero wants to catch the killer.
Amata, it will not be easy for you to hear. But there is at least one truly guilty party behind it all. Guilty in the true sense of acting with malice and committing a heinous crime with selfish intent.
And the opponent wants to get away.
Your mom is still undocumented, and if this is your fault, she'll be found out and at best deported, and your family will be broken. But we're not going to let that happen, are we? Huh?
But they're really fighting over which version of reality everyone will believe.
No, I can't lie. You know I can't lie, I'll puke.
Well, then don't lie. Tell fragments of the truth in this exact order.
Some of the best opponents aren't always immediately obvious to our hero. They must first be revealed.
It was all me, James. It's always been me, the author of all your pain.
The mystery of whodunit might even take over the role of opponent and become the core of the story.
That's what we're trying to find out. We're trying to find out who killed him and where and with what.
Sometimes, the opponent may even hide in plain sight by playing the ally. Another pretty descriptive title here. This is when we often meet a fake ally opponent who appears at first to be an ally.
But you handled yourself well out there today. We saw what you did with the tower. We could use someone like you on my world.
Thanks.
But will turn out to be an opponent later on.
You lied to me. And I trusted you.
Though if the villain began plotting before the movie even started, we may meet the fake ally much sooner.
When I was your age, they would say we could become cops or criminals. Today, what I'm saying is this. When you're facing a loaded gun, what's the difference? It's my boy.
The idea of a hidden enemy is intertwined with the mysteries and reveals that keep the audience wanting to discover more, and often force our hero to react. During this step, the hero encounters an unexpected truth that shifts their perspective.
No tomorrow. That will mean there will be no consequences. There will be no hangovers. We could do whatever we wanted.
That's true. We could do whatever we want.
Often reshaping both their goal and the underlying reason driving them toward it.
I'm not going to live by their rules anymore.
But keep in mind that the new direction should grow organically out of the original desire line.
Really? This is the third time. It's like yesterday never happened.
I'm racking my brain, but I can't even begin to imagine why you'd make up something like this.
I'm not making it up. I am asking you for help.
Not start a completely new story. And with this new goal in mind, the hero will need to regroup and figure out what to do next. This is the fourth of our 7 core steps. The stage where our hero and their allies come up with the guidelines and strategies to achieve their new desire.
Take car, go to Mum's, kill Phil, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over.
Though they usually don't have everything figured out.
What happened? Where's he coming? It wasn't as easy as all that.
Sometimes the hero doesn't even possess the skills needed to execute their plan.
Get you there. I'm not even trained for combat.
Meaning they'll need to train. Cue the montage. Whatever plan they do have almost always ends up failing, because as much as our hero wants their goal, the opponent wants to stop them. Our hero isn't the only one that can plan for what they want. Their opponent can too.
But when I hired Vizzini to have her murdered on our engagement day, I thought that was clever. But it's going to be so much more moving when I strangle her on our wedding night. Once Gilder is blamed, the nation will be truly outraged. They'll demand we go to war.
And again, like our hero, the details often remain vague or hidden from the audience early on.
Get everybody up. Do it now. I want them all activated.
Wait, all of them at the same time?
You heard me. I want Bourne in a body bag by sundown.
Anatomy of Story puts a big emphasis on reveals as the foundation of good plotting. This reveal and react cycle is the engine that drives our story forward. Step 12 is drive. And by step 12, Truby means step 10 through step 14, from when the hero first develops their plan until their apparent defeat. This section of the story is the core of the reveal and react cycle. The hero has a plan.
What do? We wait. What if they get in here? No, they can't.
But then an opposing plan is revealed.
We're just sending them a message.
Gas hisses through the spigot and into the hose, into the hole that's been drilled into the air duct. So the hero counters that. Inside the duct, Meg flicks the lighter, a spark sparks, a flame flames, and a hot blue cloud shoots out in 2 directions. And then regroups with a new plan.
I didn't knock up this line, but I hooked up the main line. If we can find it, we can cut into it.
Which forces the opponent to respond again. Raoul approaches the cabinet.
There are 3 men downstairs. They broke into the...
He smashes it with a sledgehammer. The line goes dead. And so on until the hero gets so desperate, they're willing to do almost anything to get a win. Setbacks suck.
Okay, what kind of skirts do you use?
Please bore someone else with your questions.
They especially suck when they happen over.
So this is your job. Get me home.
She hangs up.
Oh my God,
She's going to murder me.
What does she want you to do?
And over.
For me, and if that happens, I will search every blimpies in the tri-state area until I track you down. She's gonna fire me?
And it's not like your opponents are playing fair, so why should you?
Emily would die. Her whole life is about Paris. I can't.
If you don't go, I'll assume you're not serious about your future at Runway or any other publication.
Well, probably because, unlike your opponent, you've got real friends. People who are willing to tell you when what you're doing is wrong.
I thought Paris was a big deal for Emily.
Even if you're likely to be defensive or even combative about it.
Andy! Andy, what the hell is wrong with you?
I didn't have a choice, okay? Miranda asked me and I couldn't say no.
I know, that's your answer.
Because you haven't had your next big revelation. There's still a short distance between you and rock bottom. If the hero was dishonorable, it didn't work. It may have even lost them their friends. But no matter what, this is the step where things look like they can't get any worse, and then they do.
Remember when you thought I hit bottom? That wasn't bottom.
The opponent pulls out another counter.
Well, where the
An impression of leering jaws which blur forward, then a whirl of motion and a truncated scream. Exterior, APC, landscape, station. They watch in dismay as the approaching ship veers wildly. It hits a ridge. Run! Tumbles, bursting into flame, breaking up. And our heroes suffer an apparent defeat.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now?
While it's a true low point, it's only an apparent defeat. Because this vulnerable state is a perfect catalyst for another revelation. Just after the apparent defeat, the hero almost always has another major revelation. If he doesn't, the apparent defeat is real, and the story is over. But at their worst, our hero will once again uncover an unexpected truth that will shift their perspective and reshape their goal. Jake staggers, lost and alone through the burning forest, utterly shattered, eyes vacant.
I was a warrior who dreamed he could bring peace. Sooner or later, though, you always have to wake up.
Most importantly, their newfound drive will be unrelenting. This is a recommitment and doubling of effort to achieve their goal.
I needed their help, and they needed mine. But to ever face them again, I was gonna have to take it to a whole new level.
But remember, while the hero's been clawing their way back from rock bottom, the opponent hasn't stopped pursuing their goals. In this step, the audience learns something new that the hero has yet to find out. Maybe the enemy they thought they barely defeated is still alive.
This will help you heal, make you stronger.
Or the villain they thought they'd only just escaped actually let them go.
They've just made the jump into hyperspace.
You're sure the homing beacon is secure aboard their ship?
These reveals help build anticipation as the audience finds out what the opponent is truly capable of, but can't do anything but wait for the hero to fall into their trap. And if you have a fake ally opponent, Truby says this is when the audience learns the true identity of the fake ally, again before the hero. But I have to admit that I almost never found this to be true. We usually learn about them much earlier.
These are the advanced team reports from the Miami field agent. Take a look at them.
As they begin to read the reports, Gibbs withdraws his weapon and shoots each of the agents. Silenced pistol, blood all over the cabin. Or at the same time as our hero does.
Hey, who do you think locked you out? I was the one who filed the injunction against you.
Tony is shell-shocked. Even the one example provided in the book from Casablanca involves more of a frenemy who only betrays the hero when that same hero pulls a gun on him.
Just the same, you call the airport and let me hear you tell them. And remember, this gun is pointed right at your heart.
Hello? Is that the airport?
That's not the airport.
There were 2 letters of transit for the Lisbon plane. There's to be no trouble about them.
Hello? Hello?
Whatever the case, the hero won't be left in the dark for too long. Remember how I said reveals are the foundation of good plot? Well, here's yet another major revelation, where our hero discovers the true strength of their opponent. His elite squad is alive. He turns and heads toward the distant lights of the Imperial City. On the mountaintop, Mulan and Mushu watch them in fear. But rather than send them running, knowing exactly what they're dealing with bolsters their resolve. Mulan runs back to Khan, picking up the sword Shang left behind.
Home is that way?
I have to do something.
But first, a little detour. Maybe. Step 18 is another one where the number isn't exactly what it seems, because it's the most movable step of them all. This is the stage where the world begins to close in on our hero. This could be the pressure of the opponent's pursuit. She swings the bat in front of her as she backs away and he follows her.
Stop swinging the bat.
Or it might be a literal narrow passage that serves as a real barrier and a metaphor. The tattooed prisoner offers him the rope. Wayne refuses, starts to climb. Prisoners gather around as word spreads. Wayne makes his way cautiously up the treacherous rock face. This step often also involves some sort of brush with death. Again, sometimes metaphorical, like losing a business.
Tommy, it's all over. You made a valiant effort, but we're gonna have to sell to Zelensky.
And sometimes literal. Pow, Tim is cut off mid-sentence and literally thrown from the fence. He slams into Grant. They fall to the ground. Lex runs over to them. Grant notices a larger problem.
He's not breathing.
But the finite nature of human life gives meaning to what we do with it. It makes it worth fighting for. If you're keeping track, this is the 5th of 7 core steps. And with only 3 total steps remaining to squeeze in the rest, you can probably tell how pivotal the climax and ending are to a good story. Our hero and opponent have been in a near constant back and forth since the drive step. But this is the final confrontation, and it's winner take all. The term battle is likely to evoke a conflict of violence.
Stand or choose your champion.
I'm here, Atreides. I need a blade. Except mine.
But a war of words is just as viable.
I want to hear your arguments.
I gave you my arguments.
We're not convinced. We want to hear them again.
Either way, this is the step where our hero almost always achieves their external goal. Rocky turns to the TV camera and raises his championship belt.
You idiot! I did it!
A goal that should be inextricably linked with addressing their internal weakness and need. Core step number 6. If the battle was the ultimate confrontation, then it only makes sense that it leads to the ultimate revelation. We began the story by setting up our character's weakness, the things that held them back.
I wish that for only one day Dad couldn't tell a lie.
But their journey has led them to this moment of self-revelation, where they finally see their true self, mistakes and all.
Audrey's on her way to the airport. I'm gonna lose Max forever. I can't let that happen. I love him!
Pause.
You know, this truth stuff is pretty cool. I love my son!
If their weakness was also moral, then the hero doesn't just bear witness to their flaws. They also realize how their flaws caused them to hurt others.
I love you.
He struggles to sit up.
And I'll never hurt you again.
The only thing left is to fix things. The hero realizes how much they messed up and maybe even who they've hurt, and now must act to set things right and prove themselves changed.
I am the sovereign ruler of the nation of Wakanda. And for the first time in our history, we will be sharing our knowledge and resources with the outside world.
And for Truby, that means making a distinct choice between 2 options, each representing a different answer to the moral dilemma of the story.
But Jeannie, what about your freedom?
Hey, it's only an eternity of servitude.
This is love. Jasmine, I do love you, but I gotta stop pretending to be something I'm not.
I understand.
Jeannie, I wish for your freedom.
What?
A choice that will change the hero and maybe even their world. The last of the 22 steps and the core 7. Our hero has confronted their weakness and usually fulfilled their goal. Their drive is satiated and they've emerged a different person than when the story began. In most Hollywood stories, this self-revelation is positive. To some degree, the hero is enlightened by their journey and the world is changed for the better.
So no matter what type of animal you are, from the biggest elephant to our first fox.
Reveal. Nick is a cadet. He removes his shades, winks at Hawks.
I implore you, try to make the world a better place.
Though there are some stories where the revelation is negative. The protagonist could learn they're irredeemable, or at least can't forgive themselves. One of the orderlies holds a white fabric bundle, something glinting steel-silver in the sun.
You know, this place makes me wonder.
Yeah, what's that, boss?
Which would be worse? To live as a monster? Or to die as a good man?
Or they may fail or refuse to recognize their flaws and avoid self-revelation altogether. Jim watches Andrew, crazed, exhausted, looks like he's pushing himself past what is safe, and knows there's no longer anything he can do about it. He is lost. But their downfall still exemplifies the theme. The character just loses the moral argument.
And I've lied about who I am and where I am. Now no one will ever find me.
Do you mean lied about who you are?
I always thought it'd be better to be a fake somebody than a real nobody.
But for good or bad, life at the end of our story returns to a new normal, distinct from where our characters began.
Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. And now it's all over.
And that's the hardest part. Today everything is different. There's no action. I have to wait around like everyone else.
So there it is. Kind of 22, sort of steps to complete a plot that definitely doesn't follow the 3-act structure. I mean, a 3-act structure would be hopelessly simplistic and in many ways just plain wrong. 3 acts? Pfft, that's a mechanical device superimposed on the story and has nothing to do with its internal logic. There's no way Truby's 22 steps would easily divide into 3 recognizable acts that include steps almost identical to those found in some of the most famous explorations of the 3-act structure. I'm half joking here because I really do think Truby takes a pretty unique approach to structure, and the overall book makes a strong case for his ideas of an organic plot. The Anatomy of Story focuses on what drives our characters, which makes it one of my favorite tools for early project development. Even if you choose to adhere to a 3-act structure, Truby would dismiss as a relic of live theater. But old isn't always so bad. In fact, there are probably a number of valuable techniques we've lost to the past. Paul Joseph Gulino may have uncovered exactly that in screenwriting The Sequence Approach, where he examined structure using old Hollywood techniques that broke larger stories into segments you could fit on a single reel, a concept we'll explore in this video right here.